When it is your turn in Friend or Foe, there are 5 phases that you proceed through, and these are summarized on each player's helper card. They are the generation phase, the deploy phase, the battle phase, the move phase, and finally, the draw phase. In this video, we will look at each phase in detail. Phase 1, Generation Phase. The generation phase in Friend or Foe allows players to move tokens from their supply into their bank so that they have tokens to use throughout their turn. However, when it is your first turn, you must skip the generation phase and instead rely upon the 7 tokens already in your bank at the beginning of the game. We will consider this the blue deck's first turn, so in this case, we will skip the generation phase and examine it at a later point. Phase 2, Deploy Phase. Before demonstrating what can be done at this and other phases, it is important to note that each deck in Friend or Foe celebrates particular phases of the game. For example, the blue deck celebrates the Deploy Phase. This is hinted at by its focus card, which states in its title, "To live is to deploy." Players that follow their focus card's text tend to do better in the game. The blue deck's focus has the following response special ability, which states, Response: advance this focus if you deploy a scout during your deploy phase. Limit once per turn. Keep this responsibility in mind as we proceed through an example of the blue deck player's deploy phase. So this is the blue deck's first turn. They've skipped their generation phase and are starting their deploy phase. The helper card describes the deploy phase as follows. Deploy phase. Play cards down to any sites you control, or your base, by spending the card's deploy cost. Blue's starting hand has the following card types. A character unit, called Sentinel, whose deploy cost, like all units, is at the top left, and Sentinel's deploy cost is 3. The next card type is an attachment card called Foe Slasher, and its deploy cost is 2. Then the 3 remaining cards are all action cards. We've got Discovery, Opportunity, and Gatekeepers. These are the cards Blue can use during their turn. So during Blue's deploy phase, they can deploy any number of cards to sites they control, provided they have enough tokens in their bank. Now I want to deploy this Sentinel, which turns out to also be a scout. Its deploy cost is 3, and I have enough. But I can't just deploy it anywhere. I have to deploy it to a site I already control. This means a site where I already have a character unit. So at this point, I can only deploy Sentinel to my base, where I already have my starting character. So I'll do that by putting Sentinel on top and spending its deploy cost of 3. Now, if you remember, once per turn, Blue can advance their focus card if they deploy a scout during their deploy phase. Blue's focus card is currently at value 0. But since Blue deployed a scout during their deploy phase, they can advance their focus card to the next value, which is 1. Now players can indicate the next value on a focus card by putting some marker to indicate it. I will do the standard way, which is to rotate the focus card so that it points out at the next value, which is 1. Whenever players battle, they add their focus value to their total strength. So, whenever Blue battles, they will be strength plus 1. Now it is still Blue's deploy phase, and they can continue to deploy cards from their hand. However, they can also use any action cards, provided that those actions specify in their game text that they can be played during the deploy phase. For example, when looking at Blue's hand, they no longer have any units, So the blue player might want to play the action card Discovery, which states in its game text, during your deploy phase, search through your draw pile or discard pile for free. You may take any unit found there into your hand after showing it to opponents. Shuffle. Discard this card. When you use an action card, play it down to the board to indicate that you are using it. And that's just what I want to do. So I'm going to decide to search my draw pile for any unit. And I'm deciding to take out Vanguard. So I would show this to my other opponents, put it in my hand, and then shuffle the remaining draw pile. And then I'm finished using Discovery, so I will discard it. Next, I want to deploy Vanguard, whose deploy cost is 2. I have enough tokens, and interestingly, Vanguard is also a scout, but upon deploying Vanguard, I wouldn't be able to advance my focus card again, because I'm only allowed to do that once per turn. Now, all scouts have this ability called Explore, and it's a responsibility. It states, after deploying this scout, you may spend 1 extra token to have it immediately explore, moving it up to a distance of 2. Note, this uses up its personal movement. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to deploy it. I have to deploy it to a place I control, which is going to be at my base. Its deploy cost is 2, but then I'm immediately going to use its Explore special ability. So I get to move it up to a distance of 2, and the cost for that ability is to spend an extra 1. So I could move it either here or here, and I've decided to advance it to its most advanced position by exploring by a distance of 2. Next, I want to deploy Foe Slasher, but its deploy cost is 2. So I only have 1 token, so how would I be able to do this? Well, I notice that I have the action card Opportunity, which reads, during your deploy phase, battle phase, or move phase, bank 1 for each location you control, to a maximum of 3. Discard this card. So I'll play Opportunity, and I don't just control my base location now, because upon exploring with my Vanguard, I now have a character at this site. So I control this location and this location. So I get to bank 1, 2, 1 for each location I control. So I'm done using Opportunity, and now I have enough tokens to play Foe Slasher. Foe Slasher's deploy cost is 2, and it reads, Specification, attaches only to character units during your deploy phase, cannot be transferred. Now, the only units I have down are character units, so I could choose any of those to deploy Foe Slasher to. I'm going to decide to deploy Foe Slasher to my Vanguard. Whenever you deploy an attachment to a unit, place it underneath that unit. The deploy cost of Foe Slasher is 2, so I'll spend that 2, and now I've deployed Foe Slasher. The only remaining card I have in my hand is Gatekeepers, which is an action card that can be used in the battle phase. So this concludes Blue's deploy phase.